How's it going? Let me just wait for the YouTube to wake up here, and then we will be there. It is. Yeah, there it is. It's coming alive. It's feeling it. Yeah. All right. Let's just make sure everything's copacetic and we'll get started. All righty. Welcome, everybody, to the patron stream. Ron Placone here. I hope you are well. This is the patron stream where I respond directly to the patrons, and I respond to patrons' comments and ideas, and I thank you all for your thoughts this week. We're going to start out with Edwin, because I didn't get to this last week, but I said I would hop on it this week when my answer to your question is yes. So that question that you asked last week, or my answer would have been no last week, now my answer is yes. Edwin's question: did you get a chance to check out the new X album? Yes, I did. And I loved it. I really dug the new X album. And so here's why I dug it. It was just a perfect X record. Like it was X, and it was apparent that it was X. You know what I mean by that? Like it was like the whole time I was listening to that album, and I like X's music. I'm an X fan. I like their sound. I was listening to that album, and I just imagined the band just kind of looking over at each other going, yeah, we're playing music together again. And that's not to say it was just totally derivative of their past work, because that wasn't the case. I mean, it was the type of album. It was clearly the X sound, but it definitely had a modern tinge to it. Like that album, could that album have been made in the 80s? Absolutely. But it also totally could have been made today. Like there wasn't anything time-stamped about that record, but it was totally the X sound, which in my opinion is like the perfect reunion record. You know, here's a band that is not, presumably not written together in quite a long time. And here they are again, doing what they do best and celebrating what they do best. So I really enjoyed it. And I thought that joy was just apparent in the sound. I thought the production was perfect. It was just a perfect X record. And I know that, as a listener, when you celebrate these types of things, you have to be mindful of, like I know that's sort of a sensitive thing from the artist's perspective, because most bands, they don't want to seem like they're just making the same record over and over again per se. So, but on the same note, there is such a thing of saying this is a perfect X record and this is totally an X record. But on the same note, that doesn't mean it's derivative of past work. It's still fresh and it's still great, but it's what they do and it's what they do best. It's hard to, because everything I just said about that record, I mean complimentary. Like I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I was dancing around the apartment. It was a good time. And, again, it was just, I mean, that's what you want in a reunion record. Like you want to just feel like, hey, the band's back. They're doing what they do. I picture them just smiling at each other, being like, hell yeah. And I hope I get to catch X live again. I've seen them. Have I seen them twice? I think I've seen them twice, actually. Yeah, I've seen them twice. I've seen X twice. Once was in downtown Los Angeles, and then once was at, I believe it was at a festival. And the festival was a little, the downtown Los Angeles show was better. The festival was a little more, it was a little more cluttered, not because of them, but just because of the festival in general. So, but anyway, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the new X record a lot. What did you think, Edwin? Let me know in the Patreon comments later what you thought of that new X record. I really enjoyed it. I asked some other friends to listen to it. And, my buddy Adam, who you guys may remember from the music podcast, 5 Chords and the Truth. Last time I went to see X, that's who I went with. Adam and I went to go see X. And I texted him right after I listened. I was like, dude, have you heard the new X record yet? He had not. I was like, you got to check it out. It's great. So, yes, I did listen to it. I enjoyed it very much. Mark, you said a couple things. So here's a couple things that you said. First, you said, I would love it if you, Graham, Jimmy, Steph, Chris Smalls, and Jane McAlvey can have a live stream Zoom session to coordinate May Day actions. I'm pretty sure they're already coordinating May Day actions and I am supportive of what they do. Chris Smalls and Jane Michelevi. I think I'm mispronouncing her name. I apologize for that, but I'm really in support of what Chris Smalls is doing. So yeah, I'll do whatever I can to support that. You also mentioned another idea. How about giving Tara Reid free tickets to your shows or a Patreon tier based on the hell she's going through right now? I think she deserves to laugh. Totally, sure. I would do that in a heartbeat. The reason I'm smiling right now is because, honestly, I have no idea if she thinks I'm funny. I don't know if she enjoys what I do in the slightest. I have no idea if she knows who I am. Obviously, if she ever reached out to me, I'd be like, hey, I'd be honored. Would you want to be a guest or on at a Zoom show or whatever? I'd be happy to accommodate that. If it made her happy. But I have no idea. I'm not Bono from U2. I don't assume that my output is a gift to people. You know what I mean? I understand that I'm not for everybody. Nobody is for everybody. And I'm not for. I don't assume like, hey, here's my creative output. I bet you feel so fortunate right now that I'm bestowing it upon you. I have no idea. I mean, I have on tour, I have reached out to people whose work I admire when I know I'm playing in their town. And I'd be like, hey, I'm a big fan of your music, or I'm a big fan of your writing, whatever it may be. And I know you live in X town. I'm performing in X town, and I'd be honored if you would want to attend the show as a guest. I'd love to have you on the guest list. And that has had a 0% success rate. I have never had success doing that ever. I've gotten responses before, even affirmative responses saying, hey, thank you, I appreciate that. But then no one's ever shown up. Now, if it's someone I already have an existing relationship with, if it's someone I've collaborated with already, that's a different story. But just like cold email, like, hey, I like your work or whatever, whenever I've done that on tour, 0% success rate. That might change someday. But anyway, my point is, I have no idea if what I do would be something she'd be excited to hear about. Like, oh boy, a Romflacone show. Maybe, who knows? But if she ever reached out to me and was like, hey, can I get on the guest list for something? Of course, I would say absolutely, and I would do that. So, but yeah, thanks for the thought. Chris Walker, what's up? Strange times. This is what. Well, Chris, you share this, so we'll go to this. Hold on. Protest organizer could face second criminal charge for rally in Pacific Beach. So the protest organizer said she'll fight, blah, blah, blah. San Diego woman who organized the two recent protests against stay-at-home orders could face a second misdemeanor charge following the latest rally, which drew hundreds of protesters to Pacific Beach. So that person is facing potential consequences for doing that. And you say, strange times that we have right-wingers protesting a government run by Trump, yet they still blame the libs, you say. While I do not agree with everything these people say, I am fearful of the elites taking away more rights out of fear, like the government did with 9/11 and the Patriot Act. I agree with you, Chris. I don't agree with those protests either. I disagree with the protest against the stay-at-home orders. However, on the same note, there are a lot of things that the powers that be are doing that I find concerning and I find overreaching and I find completely unnecessary, i.e. facial recognition technology being expanded, i.e. The manner in which they're conducting surveillance and the extent to which they're doing it. That's not helping fight COVID, all right? It's not helping. It's just an overreach and a power grab. And you see some kind of parallels here where they're saying, well, we don't know if this will actually help, but we don't have time to talk about it. We got to just do it. Well, that's the same justification they use for the Patriot Act, isn't it? So I feel ya, and it's a tough line to walk. I mean, sometimes when you talk about that stuff, people, their knee-jerk reaction is like, oh, you're not taking COVID seriously. And it's like, no, I'm taking it very seriously. I'm just acknowledging an overreach when I see it. That's not helping anything. Yeah, overarching surveillance is not helping to fight COVID. It's not helping. facial recognition technology that's faulty and has been abused time and time again, overextending that is not going to help fight COVID. And, and also getting back to these protests. And again, I do disagree with those protests. I don't think protesting the stay-at-home order is the way to go about it. I think the grievance is with the government who's not taking care of the people in a pandemic. That's the grievance. So, and it's a tough line to walk because on the same token, I don't want Facebook to make judgment calls on who can and can't plan their protest, because I have participated in some general strike and rent strike protests. And in those protests, we utilize social distancing, and the May Day protests are going to be the same. People protest in their cars so that they can social distance. And the organizers who are outside, they are social distancing from each other. Now, obviously, the people who are protesting the stay-at-home order, they're not going to be social distancing because that's what they're protesting. And so they are putting other people in danger. So there's a lot of factors here, and it's kind of a weird, it's a very weird circumstance. But what's equally lame, the press is covering that the stay-at-home protest organizer might face consequences. Well, in some of the rent strike protests, people have already gotten fines and fees. They've gotten fines for being too loud on their horns. So they've already faced consequences, and they've been practicing social distancing at their protests. So, at the end of the day, kind of seems like it's just, stepping on protesters' rights in this, for instance. And by the way, the media's not talking about that part. Rent strike protesters have already gotten fines and fees. No one in the media is talking about that. But they'll talk about when these stay-at-home protesters are apparently going to face consequences too. They'll talk about that. It's interesting. But I hear you. It's a weird situation because it's like, well, if they're not social distancing, they're putting other people in danger. So there's that element to it as well. However, on the same note, I can't just say, well, I disagree with that protest, so they can't protest. I have no right to say that. Neither does anyone else. But they are kind of endangering other people by not social distancing. It's a tough situation. It really is. It's a tough situation. I think that, all protests should adhere to social distancing, but if the protest is against social distancing, they're probably not going to social distance. And I don't want Facebook determining. So those are all the factors at play here. And it's weird, all these factors. It's like, okay, I personally do not agree with the protesting the stay-at-home orders. I disagree with that protest. But it's not my place to determine who has the right to protest and who doesn't. As long as no one's endangering anyone else, well, those waters are muddied now because violating social distancing does endanger other people. So there's that part to it. On the same note, I don't want Facebook determining who can and can't protest. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think that'll lead to anything positive. On the same note, I take quarantine and COVID-19 very seriously, but I also know surveillance overreach when I see it, and that should be called out because that's not constructive. So many factors at play, Chris, and now I have a headache. Damn it. So I hear you. It's a tough line to walk, and I wish I had the overarching solution. I don't. I really don't. Podcast by George. What's up? Ron, did you know the SBA is specifically giving loans to churches? And you put churches in all caps as part of the bailout. What happened to the separation of church and state? WTF? What is WTF? WTF stands for when's it time to fart, right? Isn't that what WTF? No, I know. It stands for what the fuck. But anyway, I did not know that, George. And I'm not surprised. What happened to separation of church and state? We never had it. I wish we did. I'm for it. I agree with the separation of church and state. but we don't have separation of church and state. The church gets to influence our politics. They get to influence legislation. They get to influence basically how we're governed and what societal norms are. Yet they don't pay a dime in taxes. And they pretty much control cities, even in some cases. I mean, out in Utah, the Mormon church controls the liquor licenses. They pretty much control liquor licenses in Utah. Mormon church does that. Oh, by the way, the Mormon church, look at all the stuff they were doing during Prop 8, and they faced no consequences for it. They didn't even lose their tax exemption for like a year. They blatantly violated the rules for the separation of church and state, which, yeah, those rules are there in verbiage, but they're never enforced because they've been blatantly violated time and time again. No church has ever faced any consequences. Never. So, yeah, I'm not shocked that, I mean, this is my first time hearing about this, George. Like I've not seen anything like that in the news. But would it surprise me one bit? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because you always see them do the mental gymnastics necessary to justify, well, the church is, I can just imagine it now. Like, well, the church is so important to the community and its community members, And, my brother-in-law said this once. He's like, how bad at business do you have to be to let a church go under? It's like you don't pay a dime in taxes. People just give you money every week. What'd you do? Nothing. This is like, well, you don't go to heaven if you don't do this. So give us money. And people just do it. You don't pay a dime in taxes. Mostly volunteers keep your thing afloat. Your church is kept afloat which, I mean, it would blow my mind for years. And again, if you have personal belief, that's your business. I'm not trying to say, my critiques of religion are against the construct of religion and the abuse of power that religion does and what it does to a society in the negative. I have nothing against anyone's personal beliefs. That's your business. I'm part of the church. If I don't know, and neither do you. So let's just be nice to each other. That's it. But, I mean, my family is Catholic, and I remember my dad, like, he would work finance for the church that he goes to. And they just, not everybody, but some of the people there just treated him like garbage for years. And I'd just be like, dude, you're a volunteer. You're volunteering your time. And they're just being like at one point they scolded him because he was doing too much. Like he was like, they're like, you're doing this and this. You can't do that. You're like, oh, they're telling you volunteer. You should return some of your paycheck, Dad. Return some of that paycheck they gave you. And I'm just like, why do you tolerate this? Why don't you tell them to go pound sand? And the services he was providing, first of all, it should have been a professional who was paid doing it. First of all, like he was doing, I don't know, the details aren't important, but second of all, it's like, why? Yeah, I don't know. I never understood it. And I get it. For some people that's an important component of their lives and that's your business. It's not my place to judge, but I never got that. And, I think it just speaks to the power that the quote church has over a lot of people. And I feel that a lot of people, especially older people who grew up with it more, my generation and younger, we're not as churchy. We're a little less churchy. And I think it's because we've kind of seen, we didn't grow up when the evangelicals were a bunch of like anti-war peaceniks. We grew up when they were these fringe right Mike Pence types. And we grew up around, these televangelists like Pat Robertson and around, all this other stuff. So we don't remember, generations prior when a lot of churches were different than they are now. Now, that's not to say, corruption has been part of religion since day one. That's some of the oldest satire known to man has been critiquing religion. Why? Well, because it ruled society. So, of course, corruption happened. Of course it happened. And I mean, you can go from Giovanni Boccaccio to the Canterbury Tales. Satire and religion, a critique of religion, has gone hand in hand since the dawn of time. That's why it blows my mind whatever. And I occasionally get these emails that says, Ron, you can't go after religion. Really? You mean that thing that comedians have been going after for centuries? The line's drawn now, and I can't go after it. I'm the one. Yeah, for centuries, this has happened throughout literature, throughout stage performance, throughout stand-up, from generation to generation, but it stops now with Ron Placone on YouTube. You can't touch religion. I've gotten a couple of those emails before, and I'm honest. I am straight up in my reply. I mean, I said to one person, I'm like, look, if religion is some sacred cow to you, I'm not for you. I'm sorry. I'm not for you. And that's fine. But, you want to find, I mean, there are, whatever your beliefs are there. I mean, there's Christian comedians out there. If you're a Christian, like there are comedians that are committed to Christianity. Even they poke fun at it, but maybe it will be in a way you find acceptable. Have fun. I'm clearly not for you. If religion is a sacred cow, I ain't for you. In fact, if you have sacred cows, I ain't for you. Unless your sacred cow is the new X record, then that's okay. That's okay. If your sacred cow is the Cure's catalog, then I'm for you. If your sacred catalog is Bono from U2, I'm probably not. But yeah. Anyway, so yeah, I was not aware of that, George. But I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised if that's the case. I'm sure that it was easy for them to do the mental gymnastics. And plus, I mean, a lot of churches, like, they have other things attached to them that are just straight up like businesses or nonprofits. Isn't that also kind of a typical thing where it's still attached to the church and it all funnels into the same place at the end of the day? But they're like, well, this is technically this thing. So yeah, I'm not surprised. And as far as the separation of church and state goes, I think it's a great idea. And I look forward to us having it someday. I don't know when it's going to be, but hopefully someday we get it. There's organizations committed to actually enforcing the separation of church and state because it doesn't happen. But thank you very much for your thoughts. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Edwin. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, George. Let me see what you guys are saying. What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. If you are catching this live and are not a patron and are interested, patreon.com/Ron Placone for a Give What You Can level. You get the replay of streams like this, and you get all kinds of other content. You get a Zoom show once a week. I do a patron Zoom show once a week. You get podcasts, you get videos, you get stand-up footage not available anywhere else. You get my album in its entirety just for download. A lot of stuff you can go through for this quarantine. For a Give What You Can level, even $1 a month goes a long way. You help me expand this show. I'm really close to being able to get a little bit of production help, which honestly I need. I'm close to that. I'm almost at that goal, and I could use your help if you are on stable financial ground. Of course, if you're not, I totally understand. It's a crazy time. But if you are on stable ground and are interested, patreon.com/Ron Placone, even $1 a month goes a long way. And also, I'll make an announcement right now just for you. I'm really excited about this upcoming Music Monday guest. I got a really special guest this upcoming Music Monday. Patrons, you'll see this on the restream as well, but I'm announcing it here now. My guest, it rhymes with Page Dances. He's a rap artist, rhymes with Page Dances, and I'm real excited to talk to him. I can't wait. So that's coming up on Monday. I'm really stoked. This has been this week's Patron stream. I will be back. I'll be back tomorrow for a regular Get Your News On with Ron. And once again, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, George. Thank you, Edwin, for your patronage and for the topics sent for this week. And to all the patrons out there, thank you so much. I cannot do any of this without you. Especially now, Get Your News On with Ron would not exist without you. It would not have grown without you. It will not continue to grow without you. So thank you so much for being part of this show and making it possible. You know the drill. Lucy says meow. I say peace. Peace.